Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret, we've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 315. I'm with my buddy Eric Holmes. Chris Purkey's over up in the attic with a bunch of reviews. I'm looking at my Google Doc right now. I made a bunch of mistakes. I put CinemAddicts episode 215 like a moron. It says should be episode 315. And for the week ending or beginning, however you want to see it, Friday, October 10th, 2025, we're reviewing the movies Deathstalker, Beast of War. By the way, this movie, I apologize to you, Eric Holmes. I should have gotten you a screening link. You would have really loved that movie. King of Them All, The Story of King Records, Orwell 2 + 2 = 5, and The Alabama Solution. Eric Holmes, how have you been? What have you been up to the last week? What's going on with you?
Oh, not bad. Just I've been doing the karaoke stuff. I've added Rainbow Connection into my repertoire.
Very good. Like in the beautiful song. Did someone you added it? Has anyone actually performed it? Any of the patrons performed the Rainbow Connection yet? As of yet?
Any of the I don't know about that, but it was written by my friend Jim.
Oh, very good. Very good. He is also an impressionist, folks. Eric Holmes, along with being a podcaster, a great DJ.
Sometimes they're all right.
Sometimes they are all right. So, and then what, I guess the last several days, have you been doing interviews? Do you have any interviews coming up? What's been going on that level?
Yes, I do. I actually just did one today. It was kind of a last minute thing, but I'm glad I did it. It was with James Pickens Jr. He's kind of one of those guys, you look him up on, maybe you don't know the name, but you look him up on IMDb and just like see all this. Oh, he was okay. Oh, he was in that too. He's one of those guys, but he did a short called Albert's Flower. And it'll be in the Montreal Film Festival or Film Shorts or something like that. It's a short film about 18 minutes long or so, and it's really good. It is really good.
So what did you guys talk about? Just basically the short, or did you get
a little bit of the short? He started up a production company, and the short is the first project from that production company. And yeah, just basically about that. I wanted to talk more about the short, but it's kind of hard to because 18 minutes long, it's hard not to give things away and you kind of don't want to, but
it's true.
And I don't know when this will be available. So, it's kind of tough to review it now, but if you ever come across a short called Albert's Flower with James Pickens Jr. in it, do watch it. It is absolutely worth your time. And the ending to that short is freaking perfect.
Yeah. Did you know him before you interviewed him today?
Not by name. It wasn't until I looked up his IMDb. I was like, oh crap, okay, he was the guy in Dead Presidents, so on and so forth. Okay. Like one of those. Sean Whalen was the same thing. Like I knew who Sean Whalen was. I didn't know his name. So it wasn't until I looked him up. It's like, oh, it's that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's huge. James Pickens Jr. is huge. He's from Grey's Anatomy, and
I don't watch TV. So.
I know. He's really yeah. But for people who watch TV, it's a pretty huge thing because Grey's Anatomy. He was one of the main characters on that show, which is interesting.
He also had a really solid pick for the movie recommendation.
Sure.
That maybe I'll just give it here. It was Adolescence. That Netflix 3-part.
Oh, very cool.
Limited series or whatever.
Nice.
He's going off a little bit on that. And it was just a really good interview.
Okay, cool. So that's going to be James Pickens Jr. That will be available on our CinemAddicts podcast feed in the coming days, as well as our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, by the way. Currently, we have some 820-ish subs. We're trying to get to 1,000. And again, for our Patreon, no, not for our Patreon, for our podcast audio feeds, our weekly feeds on CinemAddicts that goes on the audio feed to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those platforms get ads. Thank you for supporting us by listening to the show through those digital platforms. But if you are a subscriber of our YouTube channel over at CinemAddicts, you will get the audio versions of our podcast ad-free. So even when we get monetized on that YouTube channel, I will make sure if you listen to us via YouTube, the main show, you're going to get all that stuff free and you won't have to listen to ads. But sometimes if you listen to ads, it's good for us too. Either way, we're perfect. Thank you for your support. Yes, Eric Holmes.
I should point out that James's birthday and mine are a few days apart, so we did get the
very
kind of
cool.
bond on that as well.
That's good. Yeah, James Pickens Jr. Yeah, he's for a spell, I watched Grey's Anatomy quite religiously until one of my favorite characters passed away years ago on that show, and I said I'm gonna give up this. Forget it. I'm not gonna watch Grey's Anatomy anymore. And that's been over 10 years. But I remember that at least the first 10 years, I was a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy. So check out again. What is the name of that short, Eric Holmes?
It's Albert's Flower.
Albert's Flower. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the look, don't let the title throw you off. It's like 18 minutes. I wish it was like an hour long.
okay, cool. So along with that, Eric has a review of the Smashing Machine as well. He saw it over the weekend, so he's going to give you his own take on whether Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was very good in the movie. What's the movie about? I know it's based on a true story, right? So you're going to give
Wayne Smash.
Wayne Smash. So he'll tell us if it's any good in a few moments, but we have a whole bunch of movies here. Bruce Purkey did a review of the documentary Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. Why don't we just start with that for the heck of it? Because Eric, you also saw this documentary, and I was thinking because I'm assuming you appreciate the writings of George Orwell. Orwell, of course, being Animal Farm, 1984. I'm sure you've referenced him on the podcast a few times over the years we've been doing the podcast. But this is Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. It's directed by Raoul Peck. Raoul Peck is the filmmaker behind the critically acclaimed documentary I Am Not Your Negro. And here's Orwell 2 + 2 = 5 from Eric Holmes. Will people like it? Is it a visual essay? How did you feel about this documentary?
Well, first of all, yeah, I do like George Orwell. I haven't read Animal Farm in like decades.
Yeah, since I was a kid, yeah.
I've recently, like in the last couple of years, I've reread 1984, and that book's, oh my God, that book holds up. Probably a little too much, unfortunately, but that's what this documentary is about. It's sort of a biography of George Orwell through some of his writings, not just his books, but like his nonfiction. And what was it? Damian Lewis is the narrator in this.
Okay,
and so
the star of Billions, and
yeah. And so he'll read like some excerpts from either George Orwell's books or writings or just in general. And then they'll do a history lesson on George Orwell and like how he grew up, how he became to get ideas that inspired him to write Animal Farm, 1984, and so on. And then they would take certain passages from the books, and then they'd use the movies too, because they've been adapted, in both Animal Farm and 1984 have been adapted into various forms. And so they would play like clips of the movies or with Animal Farm, the animated movies. And then they would juxtapose that with current events. And so not only is it a biography of George Orwell, it's also kind of a statement of, yeah, it was ahead of his time, but who cares? We haven't learned the lesson yet. We're in 2025, we're still doing the same. This is a family show. We're doing the same stuff over and over again. It's one of those frustrating documentaries where it's like, it's pretty, well, I would say the one kind of drawback I have on it is probably like the first 10 minutes or so feels dry. And George Orwell's writing is anything but that. So if you haven't read any George Orwell and like you see David Lewis reading the voice and then the music's whatever, and the black and white photos are like people just staring at the camera, trying to look poignant. If you're not familiar with George Orwell, it'd be like, oh, geez, I like 1984. That just sounds like homework. Animal Farm sounds like homework, because just based on this. Thankfully, it picks up after that. But yeah, I think it said like this is like the definitive biography or the last word on George Orwell, and it is. But yeah, it's just one of those frustrating documentaries where the people that need to get it will never get it. And I would even go so far as to say, because like a lot of this leans on Trump and Republicans, because Trump's currently the president, and so they're currently the ones making the decision, that they're not the only problem. It's just because like I get that Trump's Trump, but that doesn't make other people that aren't as bad, doesn't mean that they're good. Right. And I think that's a lesson people have trouble learning. Whatever. But yeah, as a documentary, it's really good, but we'll see if people learn the lessons. If George Orwell hadn't taught them by now, I don't think this documentary will, but you got to try. So kudos to them for that.
Okay, so that is Orwell 2 plus 2 equals 5, narrated by Damian Lewis. It hits theaters nationwide on October 10th. Eric, what is your rating on this documentary?
Let's see. 2 plus 2, I think equals 4. So I'm gonna give it 4 stars, but I know they
Okay.
try to trick me there, trying to make me say up there. What was it,
All
the
right.
Newspeak or whatever? But yeah, I think 4 stars. 4 stars is good. You know what? This is one of those things like if people watch it and turn things around, maybe it bumps to a 6.9. As it is, I don't think that'll happen, but it's still a good documentary. And if you're at all curious about George Orwell, just sit tight for the first 10 minutes, but the rest of it picks up, and then maybe it'll inspire you to go back and read Animal Farm, 1984, so on and so forth. Good
Okay.
stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Next up is another documentary called The Alabama Solution. And for time purposes, it comes out on Friday, October 10th, streaming on, I think they call it HBO Max now. Max, HBO Max, but I believe it's HBO Max. Who knows?
I think
But
they went back to HBO Max.
right, they're back to
It's like
HBO Max. I'm so
they were getting
confused.
so much crap about the Max thing. I think they went, but who knows? What do I know?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think that's what the correct thing is. HBO Max. If you have HBO Max, the Alabama Solution will be on your app on starting Friday, October 10th. Is it worth it? Well, I'll tell you what it's about. It's directed by
Yes.
that's my review. It's directed by Andrew Jarecki and Charlotte Kaufman. It's a 6-year journey. Okay, and here's where it starts in 2019. Quote: filmmakers Andrew Jarecki and Charlotte Kaufman, they visit an Alabama prison to film a revival meeting. And what happens is, off camera, there are prisoners, incarcerated men, who whisper a message telling them that there are things that are going on in that prison that is being kept secret from the public. And what happens is these filmmakers start a 6-year investigation into these allegations in this Alabama prison. And what we as the viewers experience is a very harrowing journey that these filmmakers go through as we get to see what life is like in the prison from stolen cell phones via FaceTime discussions from a couple of several prisoners talking about how they're scared for their own life, and they actually document the living conditions of the prison. There are 2 big things that happen within this documentary. One of them is the death of an inmate named Stephen Davis. His case, whether it was a murder, whether it's a justifiable situation, was the killing justified? That I'm not going to say what happens, but he was an inmate in that prison. It leads to the mother, Stephen Davis's mother, Sandy. She's trying to seek justice for her son because after his death, there was it wasn't very clear the circumstances of his death, what specifically led to his passing. And she's getting all these kind of stories or maybe lies in the interim, and that leads to the eventual lawsuit. So you really dive deep into the case of the late inmate Stephen Davis, and was his violent death a huge injustice to humanity and society? I'm not going to spoil it for you for the Alabama Solution, but you will figure this out. And if you actually, after watching this documentary, and you look up what happened with the lawsuit and whatnot, it's pretty shocking. Another person is Robert Earl. He's a prisoner who I believe, inmate who's been there for about, at the time of that recording of the documentary, when the documentary was made, he was in prison for at least over 30 years. And he's seeking, along with other inmates, prison reform, justice for the inmates. And here's the thing, when you're a viewer, you might think that, okay, these are individuals who committed a crime. They are serving their sentence. And some of you might think, well, injustice in prison, why should you might be thinking, why do I care? Because they're criminals. This is something that is argumentative. And if you actually have a tinge of that feeling, after watching the Alabama Solution, I have a feeling you might sway towards, my goodness, what's going on? Why can't certain people be treated like human beings? There's a lot of things that go on. Yes.
That's the answer right there. I mean, yeah, the criminal. First of all, what's the crime? Was it they were selling weed, or was it they murdered or raped someone?
Right.
And then also, yeah, they're being punished. They're not supposed to be tortured. Otherwise, that makes us
That's right.
monsters too. And
That's
if
right.
you're just going to torture them, just kill them.
That's right.
Like, just end it. If you're not going to do that, at least treat them like humans.
Well, there is a stat, and this is not a spoiler, but there's a lot of stats that are bandied, that are thrown about in this documentary. And once you start looking at once these statistics are released within the confines of the documentary, it surprised me. It shocked me. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, I believe they launched a investigation or lawsuit to take over some of the prison system here. And it's still in litigation. But since this lawsuit from the DOJ started several years back, the stat is over 1,000 inmates have been killed in these Alabama prisons since the investigation was launched or the lawsuit was launched. So these stats, coupled with what you get to see from the cell phone footage from these gutsy inmates, because they're speaking on record. They're stealing the cell phones and they're speaking on record to these filmmakers about the injustice that's occurring to them in the prison, knowing full well their face is on FaceTime. Their face is on the video. They could possibly be harmed even more on top of the alleged abuse that they're receiving, right? So this is a very interesting documentary. And you're thinking, Eric mentioned, as far as documentary goes, sometimes documentaries can feel like homework the way they're presented, right? And it was not homework for him to watch Orwell. And it was not homework for me to watch The Alabama Solution, because filmmakers Andrew Jarecki and Charlotte Kaufman, they compose a very arresting documentary. And I guess you could put The Alabama Solution, under true crime documentary. But you and I, Eric, over the last several weeks, we've been watching more documentaries. And I think we also talked about how certain documentaries, when you mention true crime, there is an element of sensationalism with the editing, with the interview styles, the way the material is presented. And what I really enjoyed and appreciated about The Alabama Solution is this could be sensationalized for just the views and the attention, but it's a very interesting bird's eye view journalistic approach to a very tragic and pretty much in crisis situation in Alabama, in this Alabama prison. Very well done.
So in this, the Alabama Solution is, I don't know, is the prison they're in, is it a private prison, or is that even anything that's brought up in this? Because that's a whole other can of worms that you can open as far as prison goes.
I don't know specifically if it's a private prison, but I will say this: there is a prison situation that happens, and this where they decide actually they're going to consolidate prisons and they're going to build 3 mega prisons in Alabama at the cost of possibly $1 billion each. So where does the money flow when and here's the thing, here's another stat. When you're consolidating these prisons to get 3 mega prisons, let's take the money out, right? What's the benefit of having 3 mega prisons? Maybe you're thinking it's overcrowded. These 3 mega prisons, when you say mega, it would hold more prisoners, right? Possibly more space. Let's just say living conditions. And supposedly,
you would hope.
You would hope. But this is actually mentioned in the doc that the number of beds in these 3 mega prisons do not surpass the number of beds that are in these consolidated prisons. So it's a 1-to-1. There are no supposedly allegedly more beds in these mega prisons. So why build them in the first place? I don't know. I'm not a builder. I'm not the governor. I'm not the attorney general. I'm just a citizen. And when you look at that and you look at how much labor, prison labor, people going out into society, these inmates working and laboring for I don't know what kind of wage, okay? Supposedly they're making a lot of money just because of their labor as well on a daily basis. So it's some very interesting statistics and situations. And on top of that, you get that really in your face look at what's going on in these prisons. And it is a very harrowing and also interesting value added experience, because my goodness, that's why I was saying Bruce Purkey up in the attic, you got to release him from the attic right now and just have him actually investigate a little bit
Yeah, I guess that makes me a bit of a hypocrite. I complain about prisons when I got Bruce locked up in the attic, doesn't it?
Bruce Purkey, you're free Alabama, Bruce Purkey. But anyways, I think you
I
will
give
love
them people food. I give
you
them
do.
people food. It's fine.
You do. Now, again, because of the serious subject matter, you might think, or your stance. Hopefully, your stance. I'm not going to say what your stance is, fellow listener, but it will lock you in. It locked me in from the minute. It's 114 minutes. I did not stray away. I was locked in until the final minute. This is something else. The Alabama Solution. Eric Holmes, I hope you get to see it. I don't think you have HBO Max. That's why we got to get you sorted out over getting HBO Max material.
This sounds like one of those documentaries that's just gonna trigger me, anger me, and it's kind of not hate watch it because it's bad and I want to hate the documentary, but hate what's going on, the context of it, and just be fuming at the screen. Why do we still do this?
Yes.
Actually, this sounds like you get a double feature with the Orwell 2 + 2 = 5.
Very interesting.
Because I mean, there's definitely some of that in his writing. So,
okay, again, so that is directed by Andrew Jarecki and Charlotte Kaufman. It's a very interesting journalistic approach to I know this is probably, I was going to say fascinating subject. It's just an immersive subject, and it's something that needs to be thoroughly investigated even further. I cannot believe that this problem will. Eric was saying this existential thing that maybe things won't change, but the fact that certain things like this will be in litigation for years, Eric, I don't know. I can't make sense of it. The fact that things can't be solved within a smaller amount of time.
They can. If you're selling weed, it happens like that. If it's someone from the top that's doing something messed up to the people at the bottom, what can we do? It's going to take decades and time to figure this out.
Yeah, what is that?
Pretend they're selling weed and attack it like that. Attack it that quick.
It's unbelievable. It's, I guess, what do they call it? The slow roll. It's the slow roll. That's the Alabama Solution. And again, that title, I'm not going to mention where that moniker comes from. You'll find that out in the documentary, but it's a pretty sarcastic moniker, the Alabama Solution.
I should clarify. Earlier when I said kill the prisoners, it's not that I want them to kill prisoners. I'm saying...
No, of course.
Yeah. I just wanted to clear that. I do not condone killing prisoners at all. I don't care what they did. If they need to be punished, if they need to be separated from society, like, I get the benefit of that.
Within the rules of the law, right? Within the rules of the sentencing, but not...
Treat them like humans.
That's it.
That's it. That's all you got to do. The point isn't to torture them for however long their sentence is. Ideally, the point is to rehabilitate them so they can go back into society without doing harm to others. But the point's not to torture them for decades or however long they're in there. That's just that's just the prisoners doing what the prison doing what the prisoners do. You're just as bad as the air quote enemy.
Exactly. Okay, again, 114 minutes. This maybe takes 4 to 5 minutes of the documentary. This is a microcosm. There's a section in this prison where it's sectioned off for drug rehabilitation. It's a section where inmates can go and have a bed, and supposedly they can rehab from their addiction.
Oh, so what happens? So just to be clear, this section this isn't you're in prison. This is if you need rehab, you can go there
within the prison.
But like if one of us had a drug problem, we could go there independent of the prison to be rehabilitated, or is it just for the prisoners?
For the prisoners within, the prisoners, the inmates there, and it's a section of that location. And supposedly, allegedly, what they were saying is there's money being funneled in to build up this section because people need help. They're addicted to drugs. Drugs are flowing into this prison. The main worker there quits. So now the person who is helping the other inmates attempt to kick their habit or help rehabilitate them is a fellow inmate who is also going through struggles. So it's basically, there is no one minding the store. And supposedly the store is being funded pretty well. Where's the money going? I don't know. I'm not a smart person, but
where's the money coming from?
What? I'm sorry.
Where's the money coming from?
Or where's the money coming from? And I just told you about 5 minutes out of a 114 minutes situation. So can you imagine how many more stories are in The Alabama Solution, again on HBO Max, Friday, October 10th. I cannot recommend this documentary enough. 5 stars for me. My goodness.
I can't wait to watch this and fume the entire time.
Yeah, you will be fuming. Okay, so that is that for The Alabama Solution. Let's get into a couple more things that I watched and I regret. There's a movie called, I regret this, Beast of War, because I'm watching this and I'm thinking, well, this is a Greg Srivasti movie, but this is definitely an Eric Holmes movie. And here's a summary, Eric. It's 1942, World War II in the Timor Sea, and several Australian soldiers, their ship gets hit by a missile. Most of them die. I think 7 make it. 7 hurt Australian soldiers. They find a raft out in the middle of the ocean. They're on the raft and they're trying to just survive into safety. And this is what happens. It's called Beast of War. Out in the middle of the ocean, there's fire all around them because the ship just got blown up. So their lives are in danger. But throw in a shark. Throw in a shark in the middle of World War II. Yes, a shark.
Man.
Yes, Beast of War from Kia Roach Turner, director of Wormwood and Sting. And it's quote, a uniquely terrifying tale. So it stars Mark Cole-Smith, Sam Delich, and Joel Nankervis. It's 87 minutes on theaters and digital October 10th. When you think of shark, World War II, 7 Australian soldiers possibly being picked off or eaten off one by one, you're thinking Z-level, B-grade exploitation film?
And
that's what
nothing wrong with that.
I will agree with you. Nothing wrong with that. But what's great is it's a solid drama as well. It's a solid B-level action movie, well written. There's a whole not fully Full Metal Jacket sequence. The first 15 minutes are these soldiers training on an island. So you get to know them a little bit. And that's a really well done moment because, and I interviewed Roach Turner about this. He actually opened up the first act on an island because he realized, A, the viewers have to get to know the soldiers, and B, it would visually switch up the story because you got to have some movement at the beginning because after 15 minutes, they're out in the middle of the ocean, or I guess on a soundstage with water, right? Some kind of soundstage. But they're on a raft, and that's the rest of the movie, right? That and being attacked by an animatronic shark. So there's a really interesting variety thanks to the first 15 minutes. It's really well directed. It's an indie film with really great acting as well. And it's a guilty pleasure with some substantive storytelling. I have not seen Wormwood or Sting. I even told the director after watching Beast of War, I'm so locked into his other work. I can't wait to watch his movies. I don't think you've watched Sting at all, Eric, or watch any of this?
I don't think I'm looking at it now. I don't think I've seen any of them. And
he's also, his next movie is
Dogs of War.
Dogs of War. And it's about
Beast of War with dogs.
And no, he's talking. Yeah. And Dogs of War, I think it's also going to be set in World War II, but I think it might deal with wolves and the two enemy factions have to band together to fight wolves, something like that. If I recall the interview.
I was joking. I didn't think that was actually what it was.
No, but what he wants to do is he wants to actually combine hybrids, monster tales with real So he's even thinking something like Spartan soldiers one time against monsters. And it sounds
I kind of dig it. I can't wait to see Giraffes of War.
Giraffes of War, exactly, with giraffes with their long necks. But Beast of War, fun title. Fun movie, well done acting, really good writing. I'm giving Beast of War a solid 4 stars, 4 out of 5 stars, worth a watch. And even though it's an indie film, it's not a cheap indie film because it's set on a soundstage, a lot of it with the animatronic shark. So they spent a little bit of money there, but at its heart, it has an indie spirit to it, and which I really loved. So again, I really highly recommend Beast of War. Really good film as well this week. That's 4 stars for me. And then I think, what else do I got here? I think I have maybe.
Well,
yeah, I have. Yes, Eric Holmes. Yes, sir.
I was saying, it sounds like we're dead center in banger season right now.
Oh yeah, we are. We're gonna get to possibly the biggest banger of this episode in a few moments. But before we get to that, let me get to very quickly a PBS documentary. PBS documentary is something that Eric Holmes knows because I think it was a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago you actually reviewed Hard Hat Riot, or last week
Yes.
which is on PBS. So you actually know.
That documentary was dense as hell. Like
Yeah.
there was just so much information just being bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, and sometimes, and it was presented in an entertaining way, right, or interesting
Yeah.
way, and that's it. And you recommended it in your review. But as far as PBS goes, King of Them All: The Story of King Records. It is directed by Yemi Oyederen. I am mispronouncing his name. I'm forgetting how to pronounce his last name, but Yemi Oyederen, I believe, is how you pronounce. But he is a musician and he is a filmmaker. This is his directing debut. And it tells the untold story of King Records, record label that existed in Cincinnati for several decades. It was founded in the 1940s by Sid Nathan. And what's interesting is King Records because it was in Cincinnati, it had a blues, jazz, Appalachian music. Sometimes you'd have different types of musicians working together. And this hybrid led to a very interesting sound in King Records. And it's one of these things where supposedly King Records, they have just years upon years of just a huge library. And I can't wait to dive into that library. King of Them All: The Story of King Records touches upon some of these very interesting partnerships, why possibly the first ever rock and roll song was created under the label of King Records. You get to learn about that. You also get to know different interesting artists you might have never heard about, like Little Willie John and what happened to him. He has a very interesting and tragic story. There's also Hank Ballard. I've never heard of Hank Ballard I think Hank Ballard in the Midnighters. I could be wrong, but Hank Ballard's music was very suggestive back in the day, suggestive rock and roll. And it's really, a lot of this stuff is even as much as I love music, this is the first time I'm listening to a lot of this music under the King Records label. So I really love this documentary. Also, the final act has a very big chapter on King Records' relationship, actually label owner Sid Nathan's relationship and collaboration with their most popular artist, James Brown. So you get a lot of value-added information and insight on how James Brown was a huge part of King Records until he was not. And you get to see that partnership. And Sid Nathan himself as a record owner was a very interesting person because even though King Records had all of this interesting music that came under his banner, under his supervision, he himself was not a purveyor of great taste. He did not, a lot of times, he would say no to artists who would really fight him tooth and nail, including James Brown. And they would fight him verbally and say, please get this music out there. Please let me do this. And he would say, this is not going to be a hit. This is not going to be a hit. And then eventually that song or that album would become a hit. And then coincidentally, once it becomes successful, he'd take all the credit.
Basically, the spinning gold is like not good enough.
Not good enough. And then when the gold returns back to him, he goes, yeah, it was because I'm the owner of King Records.
I saw it from the beginning.
Exact.
When I first heard that, I knew. No one else but me, but I knew.
It's a very interesting story from filmmaker Yemi Oyederen, and it's Oyederen. That's it, Oyederen. Yemi Oyederen. So very interesting story. I really enjoyed this. I had no idea Cincinnati was a very just a hub for great music, thanks to King Records. And it's, again, a very value-added documentary with a lot of excellent music. So it flies by pretty fast. It's available on PBS, PBS app, and PBS starting Friday, October 10th. I'm so glad, thanks to Eric Holmes, who started the whole PBS thing with Hard Hat Riot, with his coverage of Hard Hat Riot. Now we have
me. I started PBS. PBS would be no.
You should give yourself credit because for years we've been Eric, and Bruce and Anderson. We've been part of the whole. CinemAddicts has been around since 2015. Eric and Bruce joined up because they were before Find Your Film starting in 2020. Then they transitioned over to CinemAddicts. So we've all been part of this whole big family for quite a while. But thanks to Eric Holmes, within a couple of weeks ago, PBS reps, they reached out to him and then he did Hard Hat Riot. And thanks to his interview, now I'm covering King of Them All. And I think I'm so excited to see what more PBS documentaries we get to cover, because public documentaries that are free for the public, I don't know how long they'll last. I just hope PBS continues to thrive and support these amazing documentaries, including, yes, sir.
Kind of what you're describing on this. What sounds interesting about this is that compared to most music docs, it doesn't sound like this was great, and it's just like a BJ all the way through. Nor is it things were going good, we hit stardom and then fell into drugs. This sounds like it actually has a kind of character, villain-ish, I guess, but like it seems different than music docs I'm used to.
And
it seems like kind of like an actual story with actual characters, that how they interact with each other.
That's right. And there are different animated sequences here as well. And it does tell a good story of King Records. And sometimes with documentaries, doesn't matter what genre the documentary is, I think where a lot of documentaries do go wrong is when they tell the story through Talking Head 1, Talking Head 2, Talking Head 3, Talking Head 4, very few transitions. This one doesn't have that. There are some talking heads, but they are interwoven within the scope of really good archival footage and information. It's a good blend. It's a really welcome blend, and it's engaging, entertaining, and educational. And especially when something's educational but also entertains you, like this PBS doc, really wonderful. King of Them All, the story of King Records, for me, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really love this. I immediately went and downloaded some King Records stuff on my Spotify. I know that's the extra 0.5 bump. I'm going to start listening to some of their music as well. So I'm really excited for that. And before we get to Bruce Purkey, we have a couple more movies to cover here over on the Cinematics portion of this podcast. And I buried the lead. We buried the lead again this episode. Movie is Deathstalker, which Bruce Purkey is going to be reviewing in a few moments. Eric is going to also be talking about this on our other feed, where Eric's interviews with the lead actor. I don't know, I forgot the lead actor's name, Eric, and also Stephen Kostanski, who's the director. I'm going to actually be releasing those interviews after this episode as well on another.
Daniel Bernhardt.
Daniel Bernhardt is the lead actor for Deathstalker. So we're going to have another episode.
You can just call him Deathstalker because he is Deathstalker.
Okay, so we'll have an interview with Stephen Kostanski, the director, and Deathstalker in another installment this week on CinemAddicts. We'll get to that in a second. But let's get to Eric Holmes' reaction and review of Deathstalker. Here's the quote: "The kingdom of Abraxan is under siege by the Dreadites, heralds of the long-dead sorcerer Necromemnon." And then Deathstalker at the beginning, played by, what is his name again? Kevin Bernhardt?
Daniel Bernhardt.
Daniel Bernhardt. My apologies, Eric. So Deathstalker, he is going through corpses and he finds this, what is it? An amulet, a cursed amulet from a dead soldier. And he just takes it as the soldier dies. And because there's a battlefield in the beginning with a lot of dead bodies. Some of them are humans. There are others who are creatures. So it's a very interesting battlefield. Most of them are, if not all, are dead. And there's an amulet in this soon-to-be corpse. Deathstalker takes it. And what happens is this cursed amulet curses Deathstalker for most of his journey throughout this part in his life in Deathstalker. And then there's also Patton Oswalt. He plays, what is it? Is it a troll that he's playing? Eric Holmes?
Is there similar to
Wizard, right?
Gwildor from Masters of the Universe?
Okay. So Deathstalker has a partner in crime in that wizard voiced by Patton. Doodad, yes, thank you.
Also played by Laurie Field. Patton Oswalt does a voice. Laurie Field's the person in the costume.
Thank you for
and
that.
I mean, there's something to say about that too, because that was pretty good. But anyway,
also there's another person who I don't even want to mention. There's a mysterious stranger, a young woman who also joins their party. Eric, you can tell our listeners what she is. I don't know if should we say what she is, but she's also another part of this party. And this is one of these things where you don't really need to talk about the plot. Like Eric says, this is a way to hang. Stephen Kostanski is hanging his stop motion animation passions and passion for this genre into Deathstalker. And if you are a fan of that aesthetic, this should be catnip for you. Eric Holmes, your review of Deathstalker.
Yeah, hold on. We can just 6.9 on this. Okay, cool. Yeah, Deathstalkers. I love this movie. How would you describe it? Guarda's Beastmaster. That's kind of what I went back and watched the original Deathstalker because I've never seen the original Deathstalker before. So
Okay.
I went and watched Steve Kazansky's Deathstalker and was like, oh, it's a remake. I think I may have heard of that. I don't know. I certainly haven't seen it. So I went back and watched that. And it's weird because like the Deathstalker 2025 has a ton of creatures in it. Like it, and it also has that same kind of silliness and humor that you got from Frankie Frico or Psycho Gorman, but different settings. So the humor is going to be a little different, but it's got that same kind of feeling to it that those do. But also, it's bloody as hell, and it's weird because like
it's bloody, but it's fun. Like, what is it?
the tone's not
It's
dark
fun,
at all. So
fun
like
bloody.
when
Is it
when
fun
he cuts
bloody?
someone's head off and then just blood's just pouring out like a fire hose, it's like okay,
Yeah,
that
you're
that's
not.
gory. That's gory as hell. But I'm not like not trying to hide my eyes going. Oh. It's just kind of like
Right.
think of the not quite like this, but that Saturday Night Live sketch with Tarantino where
Mhm.
they're like mosquito bites her neck and he smacks it and then just blood starts spraying everywhere. Like it's kind of stuff like that. The puppets in this or the costumes, the all the different monsters and creatures. So the original one definitely has some monsters in it. This new one goes like it's pretty much all other than Deathstalker and Brisbane and like maybe two or three other characters. Like there's some really cool looking monsters and creature designs in here, and they're you can tell that they're like rubber monsters, much like you could in Psycho Gorman. But like the character designs in these are freaking fantastic. There's this like
Mhm.
mummy skeleton thing that has like a he throws this spinny sharp thing like a cutter that's on the end of a chain. That that creature just looks awesome. One of the first creatures you see is like this two-headed
Oh, beautiful.
ogre, whatever you would call it. And then the voice acting on those is really good too because it reminds me a lot of Army of Darkness. When you see a witch and they have that, but it's got that like chorusy effect to it. They kind of gives it that even more eerie vibe than it already has. And Daniel Bernhardt is Deathstalker. Come the
So good.
F on.
So good.
This better not be the last Deathstalker movie. I want to because I think the original had like three or four movies altogether, and I should probably look this up. I think this might be the fifth one. I could be wrong, but I need to see more of this. Also, watching the movie, I just kept thinking the board game Hero Quest and how much I wanted to play the board game Deathstalker. Yeah, creature designs, comedy. Steve Kostansky's never misses, and certainly didn't with this. And this is kind of like a when you watch Psycho Gourmet, you watch Frankie Frico, and then even before watching this, just looking at the trailer, I'm like, oh, this, yeah, I know exactly what I'm in for. And then I watch it, it did not disappoint.
And what's interesting about Deathstalker and Steven Kostansky's work is a lesser filmmaker would do these homages and not be a singular voice. And Kostansky has his own spin on things, and he's not doing wink wink kind of movies to the audience. He's not trying to be
No, it's just
overly.
light and fun. Like we're having a
That's
good
right.
time here. Like
That's
we're
it.
gonna be bloody. We're gonna be cutting off heads, but it's not gonna be like cutting off heads like, oh, poor character. It's like cutting off heads and it's like, oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
like
And
it hits you in that kind of primal thing. And it's just I think the tone is just silly enough that allows you to be able to do that. Whereas if you saw the exact same thing in like a say a serial killer documentary, I don't want to watch that. I want to watch I want to watch the fun, bloody stuff over here that doesn't take itself too seriously.
and by not taking itself too seriously, you also see how much work everyone puts into it. Of
Yes.
course, including Steven Kostansky, these creature designs, puppets, or the stop motion stuff, it just you see the love and the detail in Deathstalker. So I would even assume that I've only seen this once, and it would take repeated viewings to continue to appreciate it. I think it demands, especially if you love these practical effects, this aesthetic, you will be watching Deathstalker more than once and getting more value within each repeated viewing. I don't know if you feel the same way regarding that, Eric.
Yeah.
But
I also want to point out, 'cause, like, Patton Oswalt's great in this, but I think because I didn't know this when I was watching. I didn't know this till I interviewed Steven Kostansky and he told me, and then I went back and looked it up. But the character Doodad, I thought it was just like Patton Oswalt, because like the face has like it's almost not even like prosthetics. It's almost just like a mask where they'll move a little bit. I just thought that Patton Oswalt was in a costume and they maybe did forced perspective or something, but they had a whole different actor, Laurie Field, playing Doodad. Like she was the one that you see in the costume, and then Patton Oswalt's just doing the voiceover. And there's certain physical performances that I think people might overlook that, or people might attribute to Patton Oswalt. It's actually Laurie Field. For instance, when Doodad's playing the little flutophone thing.
Yeah.
And then he's playing the flutophone, and then to calm down that swamp monster thing. And then Deathstalker's supposed to do something, but he can't. He's like, I haven't heard music in so long. And like Deathstalker's being in trance. And then Doodad's like playing, it's like just kind of motioning, just like being real subtle about it. And that's like a great non-speaking performance by Laurie Field. That people might attribute to Patton Oswalt, who wasn't there as far as I can tell. So I just wanted to. Patton Oswalt's great. I love his voice. Definitely that character. I mean, it's just a good character. If you've seen Masters of the Universe, it's really similar to Gwildor. But I did want to point out how great Laurie Field was in this, because I think her performance might be a little overlooked just because of the nature of what the performance is.
Very good. Yeah. There's just so many things that can be along. Great spotlight, Eric, on that. But there's going to be so many things that I think you, dear viewer, will overlook because you're going to be having so much fun watching Deathstalker that a lot of things might just go over your head. It went over my head, period, a lot. And I think upon a repeated viewing, I'll appreciate it even more because of all of the world that Steven Kostansky builds. And it's just so beautiful to watch and fun. The humor is good. And the friendships are cool too. And the character arcs, even when you don't need character arcs in a movie, they're well done. They're good. They're good. They're solid. For my rating for Deathstalker, even though Eric's gonna hate it, is I'm gonna give Deathstalker. I apologize. I forgot to put on the Google Doc that I saw Deathstalker. I did see Deathstalker, Eric. So please put 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. For Deathstalker, I could always bump it up to 5, but I really
4.5.
Why so low? Oh my goodness! So Eric,
4.5's a good rating for most movies. For Deathstalker, that's what the hell are you doing? Bruce, you better not.
Eric Holmes, what is your rating on Deathstalker? And then you have the final word.
It's 6.9, easy. I should also point out the original 1983 Deathstalker. You might think that the comedy is not there, and just like maybe it's you're laughing at it. The original Deathstalker does have a not quite as good as the new one, but it has its own comedic tone, and it's not so bad it's good and you're laughing at it. The original Deathstalker is certainly self-aware, but also if you want nudity, go to the original one. The Deathstalker 2025, like there's a bunch of blood, but you probably let your kids watch it because it's like
it's still a family show.
It's violent, but the violent is so like fun and ridiculous that
cartoonish.
Exactly. It's like I don't want to see someone get hit in the head with an anvil, but I'll watch Wile E. Coyote get hit in the head with an anvil. That's kind of the
100%.
The original Deathstalker. There's some scenes in there that are straight up porn.
Okay.
So maybe not let the kids watch that one.
Oh, very good. What is your rating on Deathstalker, the 1983 version, Eric?
That one's probably 3-star banger because it definitely has a lot of the stuff that the new Deathstalker has. The stories are not too far from each other, but not like the new one is not a shot for shot remake of the original one. They're completely different movies, but they got a similar kind of not taking themselves too serious tone to them. But there are much different movies from each other as well.
So you would say cinephiles who really love Kostansky's Deathstalker, they should actually travel a little bit back in time and give Deathstalker a shot, the original, with a
I would. Yeah,
okay.
Deathstalker is like we're like Deathstalker 2025 is kind of like a more Army of Darkness or Beastmaster with Gwar. The original Deathstalker is a little more Beastmaster, but a little more tongue-in-cheek than the original, and a little more self-aware than Beastmaster as well.
Okay.
But both are definitely worth watching. And yeah, go watch Deathstalker 1983 and then go to the theater and watch Deathstalker 2025. Yes.
Okay.
6.9. Anyone that says anything lower is wrong.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Eric Holmes. Love it. Love it. Okay. So before we get out of here, I feel so bad about my rating. Let's get to Eric Holmes' review of The Smashing Machine. Are you, Eric, a fan of the Safdie brothers? First off, and then regarding this one directed by Benny Safdie, and written by Benny Safdie. It's called The Smashing Machine. It's been out for, I don't know, maybe a week or two. Stars Emily Blunt and, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's been getting a lot of buzz. I don't know how it did in the box office. I don't think it did great at the box office, but it's one of these movies that I think will continue to hopefully collect money, collect coins because of its momentum. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've seen it. You saw it in theaters. What is this movie about in your
I
thoughts?
think it only made like 5 million or something like that.
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, One Battle After Another, I think they're like almost up to 110 million right now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, I think overall I like this. The Uncut Gems was like just, how would you describe it? Just anxious all the way through, and it was tough to watch, but it was really good. This one's got a little bit of that, not too much. You're basically following around Mark Kerr and oh, what's his girlfriend's name in this? The Emily Blunt plays Don Staples. So it's got him rising up through, what I don't think it's MMA at the time, or maybe it is, but it's the early days of that, regardless of what they called it. And you're just following him, and they deal a little bit with I think his addictions, like they show a little bit of it, but a lot of this movie's kind of his, not so much the lead up and his addiction itself. It plays more with him trying to get clean, and then the issues he has with that, especially with his girlfriend, played by Emily Blunt, Don Staples. Emily Blunt is fantastic in this. I'm curious of what Don Staples thinks of this movie. She is not painted in a good light at all.
Oh, interesting.
So, like, for instance, Mark Kerr's trying to get clean. He's went through rehab. He's clean. He's got a big fight coming up, and I just got to focus. And then she's constantly trying to take his attention away from stuff, or kind of basically being a roadblock to his success and his sobriety. She'll go out drinking, and they'd be like, "Hey, can you not do that, please? Because I'm trying to. How do you think it makes me feel like I'm trying to better myself and get myself sober, and it's hard to do when I see you going out drinking with your friends and stuff, or doing this and that." And then she's kind of, "I can do what I want. I'm not, fair enough. She's not the one getting sober. He is. But you would think that if you're with a loved one that's trying to get clean, you might also partake in that. Kind of similar to, I got my wife pregnant. We both smoke and drink. She can't smoke and drink because she's pregnant. I'm going to be sober with her as well throughout the pregnancy, or at the very least, if I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it around her, because just being supportive of someone who's, their relationship is not great. And I think they're not together anymore, but I think they did get together, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I'd be really curious to see what Don thinks of this movie, because I think, if I understand correctly, even though Mark Kerr and Don Staples aren't together anymore, I think they're still friendly with each other. And so it's weird that they would have a movie about Mark Kerr that seems to be, at the very least, has the blessings of them, but they can still go in those dark places. And like, even Mark Kerr, like, for the most part, he's a pretty likable guy throughout the movie, but then he's still kind of, I don't know. And it's weird. I think the behind the scenes, or just kind of what I perceive or think of, like, I wonder what these people, the real life people, think of this movie. I mean, Mark Kerr's got to like it. He's in the movie at the very end. They got a scene with him. But anyway, beyond all that, you also have the fight scenes, which are done really well. What the hell is his name? Mark Kerr's friend. And they got the names all mixed up here. But anyway, yeah, the fights are real good, especially like the final fight that Mark Kerr's in. I guess, and you got someone like Dwayne Johnson, who's no stranger to this. He's been in the WWE forever. Apparently, some of the behind the scene stuff, like he actually like took actual hits. I think he got concussed one time, and that kind of helps the fights gain the realism. Kind of like in Rocky Balboa, when Stallone's like Rocky's fighting Mason the Lion Dixon, for example. He was kind of like, yeah, just hit me. Let's do it for real. We got the cameras on us. We got the boxing gloves. Just hit me. And so that kind of adds a little more realism to it. But I think the biggest draw to this is definitely Emily Blunt. Dwayne Johnson's really good in this too. I think his prosthetics are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But even without the prosthetics, like the whole idea that I forgot I was looking at Dwayne Johnson has a little to do with his acting, a lot to do with the prosthetics. The prosthetics in this are amazing because it makes him look like a completely different person, and it's just subtle enough that it doesn't stand out. But yeah, overall,
you think it'll get Oscar nominations maybe for this movie?
I mean, Emily Blunt absolutely should get one. Certainly for makeup effects. I mean, if you're not going to give it to Deathstalker, might as well give it to Smashing Machine. And I mean, maybe Dwayne Johnson will get nominated. Maybe he won't. I don't know. I think it's weird to say this. I don't want to say he's bad. He's not bad. He's really good in this. But I think the hype that he's getting for this performance, for one, that people are used to him doing, kind of like the Adam Sandler thing. They're used to Adam Sandler making Adam Sandler movies. And then when he does Punch Drunk Love or Uncut Gems, it's like, we've never seen this side of him before. It's like, well, you have, it's just not dramatic, but it's the same muscle just being flexed in a different way. The Rock's been great and stuff. He's had bad movies for sure, but he's always been charismatic. He's always been good, and he's good in this too. I think the main difference is the prosthetics. So like, and it's a air quote important movie or a serious movie. So now we got to take this. It's like the Rock's always been a great actor. They're just now realizing this because they can take the movie seriously. Sometimes there's good acting in bad movies. People don't realize that. But anyway, yeah, Smashing Machine, good stuff. Probably go, like 4 stars on this? Yeah, we'll go 4 stars on this.
Okay, 4 stars from Eric Holmes for The Smashing Machine, currently out in theaters. And to answer your question, from AI, no, Don Staples is not with Mark Kerr. They are divorced, and he has since remarried, but they remain on good terms and share a son.
Ooh.
So that's the...
I forgot a huge thing.
Yeah.
With Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5.
Yes.
Well, maybe Bruce is a lot more on the ball than I am, but there's a couple scenes where they use AI. They use AI music and AI video or images. And then like on the screen, it says this music was made by AI. This thing was, so it's not, they're not trying to hide it in there. And also the AI scenes are used to kind of accent, kind of like sort of to make a point.
Yeah.
But I know people are against AI. That's the thing in Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. Should have said that during then. Hopefully Bruce will say it in his actual review. But you just mentioned AI. I'm like, oh yeah, I completely overlooked that. I'm not on the ball today, Greg. I'm just not.
No, you're doing great.
Deathstalker jumped in my brain and just shredded it. But
do you use AI in your life, Eric? How much AI do you use in your life?
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know?
On purpose, not at all. But
Ooh, I like that answer. Who knows? You might be unwittingly using AI and you don't even know it, right?
I might be an AI creation. You have no idea. That's how good the Chinese got at this. They created this guy.
This guy's talking to you right now. This is not Greg Srzavasi. This is my AI version, and the real Greg Srzavasi is stuck in a time loop for Shark Tank. He's just saying the same thing over.
My name is Eric, movie reviewer. I am here to review movies. They are all 6.9 star bangers.
I love 4-star movies. My name is Greg Srzavasi. I'm AI, but Bruce Purkey is real, and he still remains in the attic. So, anyways,
Bruce Purkey is not in an attic. He is on a hard drive along with the rest of us because we are AI.
So that is it for this episode of CinemAddicts. Bruce Purkey has a bunch more reviews up in the attic. Oh, I forgot to mention, this month on CinemAddicts, we're doing a Patreon for the year 1998. By next week, we will have the movies that we're covering this month. Yes, sir.
Oh, we also got the Cinemax Movie Club. Last
Oh,
week
very good.
was William Lindis's Shows One Cut of the Dead. Lots of people love that one, myself included. And this week is Derek Meyer is doing The Night Eats the World.
The Night Eats the
So,
World.
and
Yes.
then I believe, I don't know, someone's up next after Derek Meyer. Could be anybody. Who knows?
Okay.
We'll probably never know who it is.
Eric, have you seen that one movie that we have to watch this week yet? Are you gonna get to it maybe this weekend?
No, I gotta work tonight. I'll probably watch it when I get home, or
Okay.
I might watch it a little late Friday night when I get home. Depends where I got it.
Okay.
But
Well,
it'll either be tonight or Friday night, one of the two.
and of course, Eric has mentioned our CinemAddicts movie club started up by Mitch Burns over at the Hollywood Persona. Thank you, Mitch Burns, for starting up the CinemAddicts movie club. It's a weekly club, which is sort of a subset of our CinemAddicts Facebook group. It's about 26, 27 members. And every week, our members, it goes by alphabetical order. We pick a movie. A member picks a movie for the rest of the club to watch. So that's why it was Derek Mayer's turn this week. And who knows whose turn it is the following week.
It could be anyone,
Could be anyone. Yeah.
could be
And
Bruce Berkey. Could be
who knows?
could be anyone really.
Yeah.
We don't even know.
We
We'll
don't
probably never know.
We might never know. But if you join our movie club as well, every week I give either a digital code or Blu-ray or a DVD to a member of our movie club, and just randomly. So join our club if you want to get some physical media or digital codes. But most importantly, join our CinemAddicts movie club for some really great movie conversations. It's not in person; they're all via chats. So it's very fun.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
So if you're listening to us and we're like, we don't want to listen to you, you don't have to. Choose to read it or not.
Yes, very, very good. Eric Holmes, anything you want to say before we get to Bruce Purkey?
Oh, if you ever want to come out and listen to me sing some karaoke.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, I got nothing. Watch Deathstalker. Then
All
watch
right.
Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. Then watch Beasts of War. And then later on Dogs of War. And hopefully Giraffes of War is coming out soon.
Giraffes of War. Yeah, all right, folks.
Actually, the Alabama solution, I'm really looking forward to
Oh my
checking that one
gosh.
out. It didn't work on the link, but I don't care. Dude, this week was awesome.
Yeah,
This
was
was a great week.
It was a very. I don't even know if you should even watch the Alabama solution because you will be PO'd for quite
I
a
know, and I
You will
love
be
that. I hate that feeling and love it at the same.
Oh,
It's like a sadomasochist thing. It's like punch me in the face, and like most people's like, oh, that sucks. I'm like, no, I love it. Do it again. Do it harder this time. So
You're gonna
it's a
see a
family
lot.
show. I won't go too far into it, but you know.
All right, folks. We know what Eric Holmes is talking about, but do you know what Bruce Purkey is talking about? Check him out right now over at the Cinem-Attic.
Welcome to the Cinem-Attic, the attic of cinema. We are back with another slate of new movies. And, well, I got 2 movies, screeners, and I have a TV show that's currently going strong or not strong. What I'm going to talk about this week are the documentary Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. That is one title, Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. I've got Deathstalker, which I guess is considered a remake, and I'm really curious to hear Eric talk about the original Deathstalker as well as the new Deathstalker, which you probably already heard him talk about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the ongoing series called Task on HBO, which is just about to finish. All right, let me get a sip of my coffee. I will mute my microphone so you don't have to listen to that ASMR. Okay, first up, we've got Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5, a documentary of sorts directed by Raoul Peck, probably most well known for I Am Your Negro, but he has done a variety of different documentaries, and he seems to like to do, I guess you would say, biography-ish documentaries, but ones where you're getting a bigger social kind of picture through the biography of sorts. Yeah, when I say of sorts, this one's very thinly a biography of Orwell, because it doesn't really do a thorough discussion of the timeline of his life or of him as a person, although it does dip in and out of that. The basic concept, or the kind of the conceit of Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5, is it mostly is voiceover from him. Well, not from him, but from his words being spoken. I didn't write down who was the voiceover actor. Either way, someone is reading basically Orwell's words, mostly from his journals and diary entries from the period where he is writing 1984. So it isn't like a bunch of excerpts. It's from 1984 itself. But the ideas and stuff swirling around 1984, was happening in that time period when he's journaling and, writing diary entries. And also during that era, he is basically convalescing on the island of Jura, Scotland. He's suffering medically. He's dying, because he dies like very soon after. I think 1984 is his last work, and I think he dies. I think he died after it, but maybe it was posthumous. I didn't even look up, but it was in that time period. So you're kind of getting the idea of where his mind was at when all this stuff was happening. And what they do in this movie is it kind of becomes a collage of sorts. So essentially you're going to get kind of a bunch of ideas about authoritarianism and power and all the things that you kind of see in 1984 and you see in Animal Farm and in a lot of his works. You see a lot of those ideas, but the way they present them is, you have the voiceover of what he's thinking and talking about, stuff about his life, stuff about authority, stuff about resistance and all these kind of things. And also his complicity in a lot of ways, and that stuff's very interesting. You have all those kind of words by him, and then you have footage and images and words of other people that fit into, or I guess kind of express even more fully some of these ideas. And it just bounces around in time too. You'll have stuff from obviously World War II and Nazism and all that kind of stuff, but you'll have stuff from Asia. You'll have stuff from current day. You'll have stuff from CEOs. Of course, you'll have stuff from Trump in there too. And you'll have things from all over the world, all different times, really representing kind of the ideas that he's getting at, which is the way that power in all of its forms, whether it's business, information systems, political power, the power of might being used, all these things are used in different ways to essentially just keep the little guy down. That's kind of the classic thing. That's kind of 1984 too. And just a barrage of information and images and stuff that just kind of washes over you. And the cumulative effect is pretty devastating and not very encouraging for the future of the average everyday person in the world. Now, I know that I was talking to a person I know at work who's really a movie fan, and I mentioned this. I was watching this Orwell documentary, and he got really upset because Orwell, like a lot of these older, when I say older, mid to early 1900s authors or filmmakers or whatever they might be, a lot of them have some really bad takes on certain things. Like Orwell, I guess famously very anti-Semitic. You get a lot of these people are, in that time period, are anti-Semitic, racist, a lot of different things. But kind of like the canceled artists too, like a Polanski or something, they can be terrible people, but they can have great art, or art that is very informative, or art that really does illustrate and illuminate something about the human condition. And I think Orwell kind of falls into that camp. Not only that, but I think he wasn't, from what the little piece you get here in this movie, when they talk about some of his early life, he wasn't shy about admitting his own complicity in the system. I mean, there's a time period where he is in India as a younger man, and he essentially is the oppressor. And he talks about what being the oppressor does to a person's humanity as well, and how it basically can destroy that person as well and kind of perpetuate the evil. Once they destroy that person's humanity, then they just continue to lash out even further and become even more dangerous. All of this would sound very dour, and I guess in totality it is dour. It doesn't make us more positive or encouraged about the direction that the world might be taking right now. And it is very much global. It doesn't just stick with America, although it doesn't stay away from it either. I mean, there's obviously a whole bunch of stuff to be brought up there. But it goes, like I said, it goes globally as far as really showing how these effects and forces are being used throughout the world. And I think the biggest I guess the biggest point of it is the idea of information. The whole thing in 1984 about, what was the term they used? Oh, I know they had thought police, but there was another word, it was thought speak or whatever it was called. I got the word wrong. I know I do. I know you guys know it. But the idea that they will use phrases and words and things to mean one thing, like, defense. But what it actually means is crushing people or whatever it might be. How they, kind of the idea that you see in They Live. They use a lot of these buzzwords and buzz phrases, but the actuality, what those things are actually doing to the world, and the actual activities that are occurring based on those kind of fake versions of reality that are presented in the words, how important and how prevalent they are. Because, we all know that in the current age, information is really the key currency of power. And the way the information is conveyed and the way it is deceptively used and used highly propagandistic way is just illustrated very clearly here. And it's shown as something that was known way back then and is even more prevalent now. So I think in that way, it's a very timely, of course, but also interesting to see how those things have not changed much. And the whole idea that you can look at history and see these patterns repeat over and over and over again. And one thing it does also is it of course, it gives you lots of news clips and clips from history and like newsreel footage from old war stuff or things like that, or old political stuff, but also interweaves movies into it too, which I appreciated. Obviously you're going to have stuff like 1984 and Animal Farm footage, a bunch of that kind of stuff. But you also get footage from other movies that have dealt with similar things. There's a whole bunch of stuff from different Ken Loach movies, which I don't think I've ever really dipped into much of the Ken Loach filmography. And I probably should, because it looks very interesting. And Brazil is in there, of course, because Brazil is very 1984 coded. In fact, they have a little subtitle that says Brazil original working title 1984 and a half. And I thought, oh, what a great title that would have been for that. I'm sure they didn't want to deal with first of all, the misinformation to people would be like, they wouldn't understand what that meant, which is kind of would have been a great kind of in-joke, because it works with the thematics. But also they probably would have had to deal with the estate or copyright stuff. I don't know. Probably something like that. Either way, a pretty effective documentary. It is almost 2 hours long. So I know that that's going to be tough for a lot of people to get into. But this is a piece that it can wash over you as well. If you can, in the current world, handle more reality and the way that reality is being bent to the will of boots that are crushing our necks. I think something about boots crushing the neck is a big part of his thing. Then, hey, have another spoonful of that here. This is almost like the kind of thing, like we've talked about before, documentaries that for the people who are already on board don't offer a bunch new, but for people who aren't, they need to see it and to actually consume it and understand it, and they will never do it. And it's one of those kind of documentaries. But I still had a good time watching it. I guess good time's not the great way to present it. I felt it was nourishing, put it that way. I will give it a 3.5, only because it isn't intensely new information, but it was done in a very effective way. I think I Am Not Your Negro is much more focused. So I would say if you're looking at documentaries by this filmmaker and you haven't seen any, start with the other one first, and you can come to this one as well. But I think the other one's a little more intensely focused, which is great. Okay, let's go to Deathstalker. Now, Deathstalker, like I said, there were Deathstalker movies, more than one, made in the 80s. I don't think I've ever watched any of them. And like I said, I think I watched the trailer recently just to kind of get a feel for the look of it. But they were movies in the 80s that were a whole bunch of those post-Conan movies that we got, where you get these kind of Z-level knockoffs, or some of them weren't even Z-level, but they're all trying to capture the magic that somehow they got with Conan. And honestly, even the second Conan movie is kind of a Z knockoff of Conan, because the first one was a much better, higher quality, and they're all a little bit cheesy. But I think the thing that really fits best with the idea of Deathstalker, that people might have seen is probably Beastmaster from that same era. Beastmaster, Deathstalker. I think there's a movie, Kroll. Kroll is a good one. And there's another movie like, I think on a kind of Sword and Sorcery, I think it might have been called. I can't remember for sure. There's a bunch of these movies. And, you know, they all had a dude that was supposed to be hunky. They all had sword and faintly D&D kind of stuff going on. Lots of creatures and just really cheesy effects and some evil force being fought by the forces of good. Now, why would we be interested in a remake of Deathstalker in 2025? Well, because of the name attached, and that is the director here is Steven Kostanski. And I would guess that most of you who listen to us are probably also aware of Steven Kostanski because he infamously did PG Psycho Gorman. Definitely I think it was my favorite movie of that year. I loved it. And it's just this kind of combination of nostalgia, throwback, B-movie love, lots of practical effects. But I think Kostanski got his start as or kind of made his way into the movie industry mostly through doing practical effects and makeup effects. So he seems to be in love with rubber monsters and actual effects and not digital stuff. But he's not afraid to use digital stuff, but he doesn't lean heavily on it. That's probably his very low on the list of the effects he'll use. And this is his version of kind of the 80s throwback sword and sorcery movie by doing his own version of Deathstalker. Also, I'd mentioned on his PG Psycho Gorman, he did Frankie Frico, which I liked, but not quite as much as PG Psycho Gorman, and I know Eric loved it as well. He also did, I believe, The Void, which was really good. And I think he might have been the director of the editor. If he wasn't the director of the editor, he was involved in it quite strongly. And I should have gone back and looked, but that also is in the same vein, but doing giallo stuff. So he loves to take these kind of old, especially 80s subgenres and do his own spin on them now. And they always feel like they are not just mocking or parodying the older kind of style, but they're just lovingly embracing it and also they're not like trying to it doesn't feel like they're trying to take it and just give you a bunch of member berries and make you love it because of that, which is the kind of the more common version of doing these kind of reboots. But it feels like he just embodies whatever it is and just wants to make a kind of fun version of these things with plenty of humor. He likes to throw in really goofy, stupid humor as well. So, all that being said, Deathstalker is played by Daniel Bernhardt, which I did not recognize, but I think he's been in a bunch of John Wick kind of movies. So he may play mostly like thug kind of guys. I don't know, but we'll talk about it in a second. And Doodad is played by Patton Oswalt, or at least voiced by Patton Oswalt. We have a little person actually playing Doodad, and Patton Oswalt's voice is dubbed pretty badly over it. I know it might be a little distracting, the dubbing, but honestly, it's fitting for a movie like this because a lot of these movies back in the 80s would have bad dubbing, or they might even be like Italian co-productions, and you know how those are always like half dubbed. So there's like this distracting kind of thing there. Brisbane is the female sidekick. You know, there's always got to be a kind of maybe a love interest, but maybe not. She's a thief that joins them. And once again, you've got all the little like D&D type tropes, right? You got the fighter and the magician. Doodad is like the Yoda. He's like third-rate Yoda, magic user kind of guy. And then you've got Brisbane as like the thief. And then, of course, Deathstalker. Deathstalker is the fighter. The story is preposterous, and I could try to describe it to you, but there's no point to that. Basically, you just have to know there's some evil stuff, and there's a medallion that is important to the evils people, and Deathstalker has the medallion, and they're going to all come and fight eventually, and there's going to be a quest to get somewhere. If you know that, you probably know enough. In fact, it's almost a joke in the movie how convoluted and silly the plot is, because in a lot of these kind of movies or stories, you'll have some sort of lore exposition dump. And that's kind of what Doodad, the Patton Oswalt character, does. He does these little in between certain scenes. He'll dump exposition with all these names. Like, I'm just going to make up stuff, but it'll be like, Zentar is the leader of the Necronomicons, and he's going to come after us with the shadow sword of Lordar, that kind of stuff. And it's great because there's so much of that being spit out by Doodad. And Deathstalker even is kind of like, you can tell he's like, I don't quite know what we're talking about. What do I need to do? Who do I need to fight? And we as audience members are in the same boat. We're all kind of like, what? You don't worry about it. Just keep going. That's the way you have to go about this. I won't bring up a whole bunch of things because this is definitely a movie that, I mean, if you're into the style, especially if Kostansky, you're going to be into this right out of the gate. And if you're not, you're going to probably say, why am I watching this really dumb, cheap movie? That would be the attitude of a person who's just like, what is this and why am I watching it? And that can definitely be a person's response. But a perfect example of whether you're going to like this movie or not is right out of the gate. Like it has the crawl that'll like describe what's going on in the world. Once again, same kind of gobbledygook that doesn't really matter and you won't probably let it absorb into your brain. And then the very first shot in the movie is just someone's throat being cut and blood gushing right at the camera, and it's like very obviously rubber effects kind of stuff. And it's just these Dreadites, the evil Dreadites, just decimating all these warriors, and you're just like, oh my gosh, right in your face, right out of the gate. So if you're immediately like raising your fist and going like, yes, this is what I wanted, then you're going to be on board. And if you're like, what the heck is this movie? You're going to be out immediately. So good job, Kostansky. You set the palette and you set the standard right out of the gate. And I do like things like the very opening scene. All the warriors are basically dead on the battlefield, except one is barely alive. And you see the Dreadites going through the bodies on the field, just making sure everyone's dead. And they're working their way towards this one barely surviving guy. And then out of nowhere, Deathstalker shows up and kills all the Dreadites. And he goes up to the one guy that's barely alive, and you're like, oh, he's going to save this guy who's barely alive. And it's like, nope, he just starts pulling the rings, and he basically just starts looting this guy who's on his death's door and leaves the guy to die. And that's how Deathstalker gets his medallion, this evil whatever medallion. So right out of the gate, you're also like, oh, Deathstalker's he's not really a great guy. He's just like this classic kind of mercenary in this evil, dark sword and sorcery fantasy land, and he just going to do what he has to do to survive, and he's going to have to learn how to care, that kind of a thing. Learn how to care and actually fight for something. That's sort of a kind of a plot, which once again, does the plot matter in this? No. There's going to be stop motion flying eyeball bats. There's going to be rubber monsters after rubber monsters. There's going to be crazy weird swamp creatures, which is a great subplot. I won't reveal here, but it's a great moment. Throughout the movie, I was continually delighted by the silly and awesome creature designs and creature effect designs and gore effects. There's so many beheadings and delimbings and silly looking puppet creatures and stop motion creatures and dumb dad jokes, and even Deathstalker himself. Like, oh yeah, and I said half-baked Yoda of Doodad. Doodad is terrible at magic. That's a great kind of running joke in this, that every time he tries to cast spells, half the time he's just hurting Deathstalker. Deathstalker himself has that classic kind of sword and sorcery, like warrior look with the long hair and the muscles and all that. But he looks entirely too old for this, like the actor. And once again, the actor was fine. He's wooden, perfect for this kind of movie. And he's also probably about 50. So he's probably about 20 years too old for this. Also perfect. Everything about this movie, if you're in for the ride, it is wonderful. I'd say it's once again, it's not quite PG Psycho Gorman level, because that's like a 5-star classic for me, but I thoroughly loved my time with this movie. I had a fantastic time with it. It is, once again, he just makes movies for me. Like, they just hit my vibe. I'm going to assume that Eric is 6.9 stars in this. If he's not, I don't know what's going on. So just to be the contrarian, I'll go 5 stars. It's just a tiny bit below. Maybe just because it doesn't have the snarky kids and the dad, that stuff in Psycho Gorman that was just the extra level of awesomeness here. Whereas this is all in Fantasyland. But I also think this is just about the same amount of rewatchability as PG Psycho Gorman, because this thing, party movie, put it on, watch it, halfway watch it, and just have a great time. Throw it on for whatever, have a great time. This is a movie, if they still did this and you still watched real TV and movies would just be on somewhere, this is one of those movies, if it was on somewhere, you would just watch it wherever you fell and just enjoy 20 minutes of the ridiculousness, because it's all ridiculousness. Love Deathstalker, 5 stars, definitely something you should remember and put in your I need to watch it when it comes out bank if you liked the other stuff by Kostansky. That's my big caveat. All right, last up, there's an ongoing series right now called Task on HBO. Task, I believe, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Once again, I don't do great research on this. That's where Eric and Greg do better. Actually, probably Greg is the real one that does that. He'll actually sit and read the IMDb blurbs and stuff to us. I like to pretty much just go in and watch something and then just react, which is probably more like what the average person does. You just take it in and go like, oh yeah, that guy was cool, or I didn't like that, or whatever it is. Anyway, Task. I believe by the same people who made Mayor of Easttown, and I feel it has the same sort of vibe. The one thing I would say is Mayor of Easttown was a little bit more dour, and you really were just in this very, very, very gray and serious kind of crime drama, but it was very effective. Here, it starts with a similar tone, and I think it does have that tone in there. It's very deadly serious. But I think this one's a little more tense. This is a little more intense overall, and I think it has a little more of a driving plot. So if you watched the other one and were kind of like, it just never really pulled me in, I think this one could pull you in a little more. Now, that being said, the first episode, you've got to really stick with it. But I think once you get through to the end of that first episode, I think you'll be on for the ride. Now, basic concept is this. You really have 3 fronts that you're following. The first front is you've got FBI task force leader, Tom, played by Mark Ruffalo. So once again, you got Mark Ruffalo. You're in good hands. And once again, he's kind of it starts out and he's like sad sack FBI guy. He's just out trying to recruit FBI agents out at like colleges and stuff. He's not doing much, and he gets pulled into this task force. The task force is started because of this. Basically, there's a group of people that are basically running heists on these drug houses run by this motorcycle gang. And the head of that group, the heist group, is played by Tom. He plays Robbie. Tom Pelfrey. He has a grudge against the motorcycle group. He blames them for the death of somebody in his family. And because of that, he basically pretends to be garbage man, and they use that to kind of case different drug houses, and then they go do heists. And in this first episode, they do a heist. It goes incredibly sideways, and it ends up with basically everybody after him and his crew. That's all the main thing you need to know. And the basic thrust of this series is you almost spent equal time with Tom and his group trying to avoid the angry motorcycle drug gang and trying to elude the FBI task force that's after them. And I won't tell you exactly why they're after them. There's another element you'll discover in the first episode, but it's good to watch how it goes sideways and what that kind of sets into motion. And then the third front is the motorcycle gang themselves, specifically the character of Perry, played by Jamie McShane. He has this kind of, he looks like an older motorcycle dude. Like he's like probably like late 40s, maybe 50, balding. Like if you just looked at him, he's very unassuming, but he's one of those guys that just has this menace and threat to him that is palpable. And he is a great, great villain. And watching him slowly try to figure out who's been doing the heist and get them to is really interesting. Along with all that, you've got Robbie. Now remember, Robbie is the head of the heist gang. Robbie, it's his niece, I believe, is Maeve, played by Amelia Jones. If you remember Amelia Jones from Coda, once again, she's almost unrecognizable here. I kept looking at her going like, who is this person? I've seen her before. She doesn't seem anything character-wise like she was in Coda. So it's interesting to see how she continues to do really, really interesting and transforming kind of roles. And you just keep watching her. I just see in 10 years from now, she's going to really have become one of our best actors and just done a variety, because she can really sink into roles and be different than she was in previous roles, which is great. So far there's 5 episodes. It's on HBO. You can sink into this thing. You can really get into the kind of complexity and the tension of it. And like I said, once again, you've got the heist group who's trying to evade everybody and is getting in more and more danger. You've got the task force group, which has a whole great crew, which I didn't even get into. But, you've got Mark Ruffalo and just this everyman character who is just getting into these intense situations and just kind of how he goes through that. And Ruffalo is just such a solid actor that it just gives you an anchor to follow and to feel like you're in really, really solid ground while you're watching kind of the chaos surrounding this situation. Up to this 5th episode, I would just say everything is coming to a head, and I think there's 2 more episodes, and I kind of like that. It's not a super long season, 7 episodes. I think that's about perfect. In fact, after just watching episode 5, it's coming to a real head, and I don't even know how they're going to have an episode 7. I can totally see episode 6, but I don't see how this will have a 7th episode. So it makes me really curious on how they wrap this up. And I'm also going to wonder, I'm assuming that way this task is going to work, if it ends up becoming a continuing series with HBO, my guess is what they would do is, now that they've set up your task force, they are probably going to have them get different cases, and each season would be a different case. That would be my guess. One other thing I'm curious about is, are our main characters, specifically the task force characters, are they plot safe, or is anyone open to danger, and can we lose people? Because that will make it a better series if people are all up for grabs. In fact, honestly, it'd probably be even better if it was just a one and done series. I would almost prefer that in most cases, but I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. So far, I would say, from what I'm seeing so far, Task is running between a 4 and a 4.5. Of course, it depends on how those last 2 episodes pan out, but I can pretty confidently give a recommendation so far to the series Task. Really solid, really well done, some stellar acting and production, very, very immersive, and a full, rich, although grimy world that they create in that series. And I would check it out if you like that sort of thing. That's everything I have for this week. Of the things I saw this week, I think Deathstalker is definitely, for my vibe, the one to go run out and see. Orwell 2 + 2 = 5 would be a great streaming pick on a night when you want to delve into the world of reality a little more than you might other nights. All right, everybody. Talk to you soon.